Before you dive into this profound story of healing and second chances, ask yourself, can a broken family truly find its way back to each other, even after the deepest wounds? If you believe in the transformative power of forgiveness, the strength of a mother's love, and the unexpected paths to happiness, then hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another touching tale. And tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from today? Chapter 1. A glimmer of hope in the cold city. The biting city wind whipped at Maria's face as she walked through the streets, one hand on her belly and the other clutching her worn handbag. Despite the weight of her 7-month pregnancy, she forced herself to keep moving. She had no choice. Since her husband passed away in an accident 6 months ago, her life had become a daily struggle for survival. Every morning she woke before dawn to check job advertisements in old newspapers she found on park benches. With the little she had, she couldn't afford luxuries like internet at home. She worked by the hour cleaning houses, but the money was never enough. Her rent was overdue, and the landlady of the small room where she lived had already warned her that if she didn't pay in the next few days, she would have to find another place. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she ignored the sensation. Her priority was the baby growing inside her. As she waited for the bus, she pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket with the address of where she had an interview, a job as a caregiver in a mansion. She didn't know much more, only that the pay was good and that she had to start immediately if chosen. On the other side of the city, in an area surrounded by high walls and impeccable gardens, the Blackwood Manor stood elegantly, a place where time seemed to have stopped, with enormous chandeliers, marble floors, and decor that screamed luxury in every corner. But within its walls, silence reigned. In the main study, the housekeeper, Mrs. Davis, reviewed the details of the new hire. She was a strict woman, with over 20 years of working for the Blackwood family. Although the mansion was in perfect condition, something was missing from it: life. Since Mrs. Blackwood's death, the owner of the house, Mr. Robert, barely spent time there. His son, Liam, grew up among doctors, tutors, and caregivers who never lasted more than a few months. The door opened softly, and Liam, an 8-year-old boy in a wheelchair, entered the room. "Is it true someone new is coming?" he asked softly. "Yes, child, but don't get too excited. You know none of them stay for long," Mrs. Davis replied coldly. Liam said nothing. He just turned his chair and left, with the same empty expression as always. Maria arrived at the given address and stopped in front of the enormous iron gate. She looked at the mansion with a certain awe. She had never been to a place like this. She took a deep breath and pressed the intercom. Minutes later, a chauffeur drove her to the main entrance, where Mrs. Davis awaited her with crossed arms. "Are you Maria?" she asked with a severe look. "Yes, ma'am, I'm here for the caregiver job." The woman inspected her from head to toe with a cold gaze. "How far along are you?" 7 months. Mrs. Davis frowned, as if already looking for reasons to reject her. "Come with me." Maria followed her through the hallways decorated with paintings and crystal lamps. She couldn't help but feel out of place. Finally, they arrived at a spacious room where a blond boy, with a serious expression and large eyes, awaited them. "This is Liam," Mrs. Davis announced. The boy looked up and observed her in silence. Maria smiled gently at him, but Liam didn't return the gesture. "Your job is simple. You must ensure he eats, studies, and sticks to his routine. He doesn't like to talk much, so don't pressure him." "Understood," Maria replied, feeling a knot in her stomach. "If you accept the job, you can start today." Maria didn't hesitate. "I accept," Mrs. Davis nodded coldly. "Good. But remember, we don't want drama or personal problems here. Do your job and everything will be fine." Maria swallowed. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she had no other choice. She looked at Liam, and for the first time, the boy held her gaze for a few seconds before turning his chair and moving away without a word. She was just beginning, but she felt she had entered a world completely different from her own, a world full of secrets she didn't yet understand. Chapter 2. Unlocking the Silence. The days at Blackwood Manor had a different rhythm than Maria was used to. From the very first morning, she realized that Liam had a strict routine. He woke up at 6 o'clock sharp, ate his breakfast without a word, and spent most of the day in his room or in the library. He didn't play, he didn't watch television, and he barely spoke to her. For Maria, who had always grown up surrounded by noise and conversations, that silence made her uncomfortable. She knew that children his age were usually curious, restless, full of questions. But Liam didn't seem like a normal child. There was something about him, something that wasn't just the sadness of having lost his mother. During breakfast, she tried to start a conversation. "Would you like more orange juice?" Liam looked up from his plate and shook his head. "Do you have a favorite color?" she insisted with a smile. "No." "Any food you like best?" "I don't know." "What do you like to do in your free time?" The boy shrugged and continued eating. Maria sighed. She realized that if she wanted Liam to open up, it would take time. Later, while tidying the boy's room, she discovered a small bookshelf filled with books. She was surprised to see the titles: classic novels, encyclopedias, and even history books. They were complex readings for a child his age. She took a book from the shelf and leafed through it. It looked new, as if no one had touched it. "I don't like my things being touched." Maria flinched and turned around. Liam was at the door, watching her with his clear, expressionless eyes. "I'm sorry. I was just looking at what books you have," she said, putting the book back in its place. He rolled his wheelchair to his desk and began reviewing some papers, ignoring her completely. Maria decided to change her strategy. "When I was little, I loved adventure books," she said, straightening the bedsheets. "I dreamed of traveling to other places and living great stories." "Stories are useless," Liam replied without looking up. "Why do you say that?" "Because they're lies." Maria felt a knot in her throat. This child spoke like an adult, tired of life. "Not all stories are lies," she said softly. "Some teach us things. They help us feel better." Liam didn't respond. Maria decided not to insist further. That afternoon, as they walked in the garden, Liam stopped his chair under the shade of a tree. Maria sat on a nearby bench and watched him in silence. "Do you always live here?" she asked him. "Yes. And your dad?" Liam frowned and squeezed his hands against the armrests of his chair. "I don't like talking about him." Maria felt she had touched a sensitive spot. "It's okay. You don't have to," she said softly. The boy sighed and looked up at the sky. "He's never here. He always leaves. He must be very busy with his work." Liam let out a dry laugh. "It's not about work." Maria looked at him curiously, but Liam said no more. At night, as she settled into the small room Mrs. Davis had assigned her, she couldn't help but think about the boy. There was something about him that worried her. It wasn't just the sadness. It was the way he talked about his father. Blackwood Manor had many luxuries, but Maria didn't feel there was happiness in that place. Before going to sleep, she stared at the ceiling. She had accepted that job out of necessity, but now she was starting to feel there was another reason to be there. Liam needed something that all the money in the world couldn't buy, and even if he didn't know it yet, Maria was willing to give it to him. Maria woke to the sound of wind hitting her room windows. Blackwood Manor, despite its luxury, seemed even colder in the mornings. She dressed quickly and walked to the kitchen, where the cook prepared breakfast in complete silence. "Has the child woken up yet?" Maria asked, as she poured herself a cup of tea. "Yes, he always wakes early," the woman replied without looking up. Maria nodded and walked to the dining room where Liam was already seated. with a cup of hot milk and toast in front of him. As always, he said nothing when he saw her enter. "Good morning, Liam," she said with a smile. He nodded slightly without taking his eyes off his cup. Maria sat across from him and decided that even if the boy didn't talk much, she wouldn't stop trying. "Last night I dreamed of a beach. The sand was so white it looked like snow," she commented, hoping for a reaction. Liam bit into his bread without showing interest. "Have you ever been to the beach?" The boy put his cup down and looked at her for a few seconds. No, never." Liam shook his head. Maria felt a knot in her stomach. It was hard to imagine an 8-year-old boy who had never seen the sea. "Maybe one day we could go," she said without thinking too much. Liam let out a small, dry laugh. "I can't." "Why not?" "Sometimes I feel like I'm useless now." Maria felt a knot in her stomach. "Why do you say that?" Liam looked at his hands on his lap without looking up. "Because Mom used to say I would run fast like Dad, but I can't run anymore." Maria swallowed. "But there are many other things you can do." Liam moved his chair impatiently. "I don't want to talk about it." He moved away, leaving her with a heavy heart. Later, while Liam was studying in his room, Maria took the opportunity to organize his things. She opened the closet and noticed a wooden box with a thin layer of dust on the top shelf. She had no intention of snooping, but something inside her told her that box held answers. She stood on tiptoes and carefully lowered it. When she opened it, she found a pile of photographs inside. In most of them, Liam appeared standing, smiling, with a brown-haired woman with light eyes. Maria felt her heart contract. "Mom!" Liam's voice made her turn immediately. The boy was at the door, watching her with a mixture of sadness and anger. "Liam, I'm sorry, He slowly rolled his chair until he was in front of her. He looked at the photos in silence, and then picked one up with his small hands. "My mom was beautiful, wasn't she?" Maria swallowed and nodded. "Yes, she's beautiful. She always said I was going to be strong like my dad, that nothing would stop me." Liam's voice sounded distant, as if he were lost in his memories. "She must have been a very special person," Maria whispered. Liam nodded slowly. "But she left, and I ended up like this." Maria felt like crying, but held back. "Liam, you're still strong." The boy shook his head. "No, not anymore." Maria took a deep breath and approached him. "I don't know what happened, but whatever you feel, it doesn't mean you're broken." Liam didn't respond. He just took the photo and put it in his pocket. "I don't like being asked questions," he murmured. "It's okay. I won't ask you any more questions." The boy turned his chair and left the room. Maria looked at the box of photos for a few more seconds before putting it back. For the first time, she felt closer to the truth. But she also understood that Liam carried a wound that no one had tried to heal. Chapter 3. The Buried Truth. That night, Maria could barely sleep. Liam's words kept swirling in her head. "I'm broken. How could an 8-year-old child carry such profound sadness?" The next morning, as she folded the boy's clothes, she couldn't help but let her gaze return to the bookshelf in his room. Among the perfectly ordered books and objects, her mind kept recalling the photograph she had found in the box. The image of Liam standing, with his mother smiling beside him, kept haunting her. There was something no one was telling her, something that didn't fit. As they walked in the garden after breakfast, Maria watched Liam turn the wheels of his chair with ease. Despite his small size, he moved with surprising independence. "You're very fast in that chair," she commented with a smile. Liam shrugged. "I have no other choice. Have you ever tried to stand?" The boy turned his head abruptly and looked at her with a mixture of surprise and anger. "I can't." "I know, but sometimes the doctors say that." "I can't," Liam repeated more forcefully. Maria felt she had touched a delicate point. "Forgive me, I didn't mean to upset you." The boy sighed and looked down. It doesn't matter. Maria felt a knot in her throat. Liam was not just a sad child. There was something deeper inside him, something that made him carry a guilt that wasn't his. Later, when Liam was napping, Maria went to the kitchen, where Mrs. Davis supervised the staff. "I'd like to ask you something," Maria said cautiously. Mrs. Davis didn't even look up from the list in her hands. "I don't usually answer questions. It's about Liam." The woman frowned and finally looked at her. "What about him? I want to understand him better, to know what really happened." Mrs. Davis closed her notebook and placed her hands on the table. "Mrs. Blackwood died in an accident. That's all you need to know." Maria felt the answer was too cold. "And Liam? Has he always been in a wheelchair?" Mrs. Davis pursed her lips. Before the accident, Liam was a normal child. Maria felt her skin crawl. "Then, don't insist," the woman interrupted with a more severe tone. "It's not your place to meddle in this family's past." Maria felt a chill. "He believes he's broken." For the first time, Mrs. Davis averted her gaze. "We're all broken here, Maria. Some just carry it better than others." At night, while tidying the library, Maria noticed a small desk in a corner. She approached it and saw that it was covered with papers and children's drawings. Some were of landscapes, others of houses. But one caught her attention. It was a drawing of a family, a man, a woman, and a small child. All three were holding hands, but the child was surrounded by black lines and scribbles. A chill ran down her spine. Just then, she heard a noise behind her. Liam was at the door, watching her with an expression difficult to decipher. "That drawing. Did you do it?" The boy nodded. "Who are they?" "My family." "And why are you?" "Because I shouldn't be there." Maria's heart stopped for a second. "Why do you say that, Liam?" The boy looked down. "Because if I wasn't there, my mom would still be alive." Maria felt like she couldn't breathe. "It's true," the boy whispered. "Everyone knows it. My dad knows it." The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. There was a deeper secret buried in that house, and she was about to discover it. Maria couldn't get Liam's words out of her head. "If I wasn't there, my mom would still be alive." He had said those words with a certainty that unnerved her. How could an 8-year-old child carry such immense guilt? That night, the mansion's silence seemed heavier than usual. Maria lay down, but couldn't sleep. Something inside her told her that Liam was suffering more than he let on. It was around 2 a.m. when a sound made her open her eyes. A cry. She got up immediately and ran down the hall to Liam's room. The boy was trembling in his bed, his eyes filled with tears. "Mommy," he whispered between sobs, tangled in the sheets. Maria ran to his side and sat on the bed. "Liam, wake up. You're dreaming." The boy's eyes snapped open, breathing raggedly. "It was a dream. Again?" he said in a trembling voice. Maria gently stroked his hair. "It's okay. It's over." Liam covered his face with his hands. "I always dream about her, about the accident." Maria felt a knot in her throat. "Do you want to tell me?" The boy hesitated for a moment, but then nodded slowly. "It's always the same. We're in the car, Mom is driving. I'm in the back seat, playing with a toy airplane." He fell silent for a few seconds. "There are lights, lots of lights. Someone screams." Liam's body trembled. And then everything goes dark. Maria felt her skin crawl. "Do you remember who was with you in the car?" Liam nodded slowly. "My dad." The revelation left her speechless. "But he never talks about it?" "No." The boy looked down. "Because he knows it was his fault." Maria felt a chill. "What do you mean?" Liam hugged himself. "He was driving. Mom was telling him to be careful, but he didn't listen." Maria felt her heart stop. "Your dad caused the accident." The boy nodded. "And because of him, She died, and I ended up like this." Maria didn't know what to say. Now she understood everything. She understood why Liam never talked about his father, why Mr. Robert avoided his son. Both were trapped in the same guilt. The next morning, while Liam was still asleep, Maria went to the kitchen, where Mrs. Davis was making coffee. "I need to talk to you," she said seriously. The woman looked at her with a frown. "About what?" "About the accident." Mrs. Davis's face hardened. "You don't need to get involved in that. Liam told me what he remembers." The woman put the coffee cup on the table with more force than necessary. "And what did he tell you?" "That Mr. Robert was driving." Mrs. Davis closed her eyes for a second and sighed. "It's true." Maria felt her blood run cold. "Why doesn't anyone tell Liam the truth?" "Because it's not that simple," Mrs. Davis replied harshly. "Mr. Robert isn't the only one carrying the guilt." "What do you mean?" Mrs. Davis sighed. "Mr. Robert had been drinking. He shouldn't have been driving, but the accident happened too fast." Maria felt a chill. "How did it happen?" Mrs. Davis sighed. "The boy was in the back seat playing with his airplane. He shouted excitedly about something, but Mr. Robert had already lost control long before that." "Why?" Mrs. Davis looked at her sternly. "Because he was drunk. His wife tried to grab the steering wheel, but it was too late." Maria felt her blood run cold. "And Liam knows this?" Mrs. Davis shook her head. "No, and Mr. Robert has never been brave enough to tell him the truth." The woman stared at her. "Maria, now that you know the truth, what do you plan to do?" Maria didn't answer. She knew that Liam deserved to know the truth, but she also knew that if she confronted Mr. Robert, his world could collapse. Chapter 4. The Path to Truth. The sun was just beginning to filter through the enormous windows of Blackwood Manor when Maria woke with a weight in her chest. She now knew the truth. She knew that Mr. Robert had been responsible for the accident, but also that Liam believed he was to blame. She walked down the hallway in silence, listening to the echo of her own footsteps on the marble floor. She stopped in front of Liam's door and opened it carefully. The boy was awake, sitting in bed with his gaze fixed on the window. "Good morning," Maria said softly. Liam didn't respond immediately. After a few seconds, he turned his wheelchair and looked at her. "Why are you here?" The question surprised her. "How?" All the other caregivers left after a while. None of them stayed long. Maria felt a knot in her throat. "Maybe because I don't want to leave." Liam studied her in silence before speaking. "I don't like it when people say things that aren't true. I'm not lying." The boy looked away. "You know the truth about the accident, don't you?" Maria felt a chill. "Yes. And you're still here?" "Of course." Liam clenched his fists on the armrests of his chair. "Everyone leaves. My dad left. Mom left." Maria felt the pain in his voice, a pain no child should carry. She knelt in front of him, holding his hands gently. "Listen to me, Liam. What happened was not your fault." The boy looked at her with tear-filled eyes. "If I hadn't screamed, if I hadn't been playing..." "No, Liam. None of that was your fault. It was an accident." He closed his eyes tightly, as if trying to block out the pain. "My dad hates me." "That's not true. He's never here. He never looks me in the eye. He never talks to me." Maria swallowed. "Maybe because he feels guilty." Liam fell silent. "Guilty?" "Yes. He doesn't know how to face what happened." The boy let out a small, humorless laugh. "He doesn't want to face me. Maybe it's because he thinks you don't want to see him either." Liam looked down. "I don't know." Maria took a deep breath. "What I do know is that we all deserve a second chance." The boy didn't respond, but Maria saw something different in his eyes, something that hadn't been there before. Doubt. Maybe, just maybe, the seed of reconciliation had been planted. Hours later, Maria was in the library, trying to distract herself with a book. but her mind couldn't stop thinking about Mr. Robert. He had to know his son needed him. Mr. Robert Blackwood was not an easy man to confront. He was powerful, inaccessible, and cold. But Maria had already made a decision. She went to Mrs. Davis's study, where she found her reviewing some documents. "I need to talk to Mr. Blackwood." Mrs. Davis looked up with a frown. "Mr. Blackwood is not available. You must talk to his son." The woman looked at her sternly. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" Mrs. Davis sighed in frustration. "Because Mr. Robert doesn't know how to be a father." "Then it's time he learned." The woman was silent for a few seconds. Then she stood up and picked up the office phone. "I'm going to make a call." Maria held her breath as Mrs. Davis spoke to someone on the other end of the line. When she hung up, she looked at Maria with a serious expression. "Mr. Blackwood will arrive tomorrow." Maria nodded. Tomorrow, everything would change. For Liam, for Mr. Robert, and for her. The day dawned with a gray sky and a cold wind filtering through the enormous windows of Blackwood Manor. Maria felt a knot in her stomach as she prepared Liam for the day to come. "Your dad is coming today," she said softly as she helped him settle into his wheelchair. Liam didn't respond. His hands gripped the armrests tightly, and his gaze fixed on the floor. "Don't you want to see him?" The boy pressed his lips together. "I don't know." "You have a right to be angry," Maria said, kneeling in front of him. "But maybe today you can tell him how you feel." "Why?" "He won't listen. Maybe this time he will." Liam looked at her with distrust, but said nothing more. At 5 o'clock, the enormous gates of the mansion opened, and a black car with tinted windows drove up the long driveway to stop in front of the entrance. Maria watched from one of the windows as the chauffeur quickly got out to open the back door. Mr. Robert Blackwood stepped out of the vehicle with his imposing bearing. He was a tall man with dark hair, an impeccable suit, and an expression that seemed sculpted in stone. His presence filled the space with an air of authority, but also with a coldness that put everyone on edge. Mrs. Davis greeted him with a slight nod. "Mr. Blackwood, where is Liam?" he asked in a firm voice. "In his room," the woman replied. Robert nodded and began walking down the hallway with heavy steps. Maria watched him in silence. Despite his unshakable appearance, there was something in his eyes, something that betrayed an inner shadow. Without thinking further, she followed him. When she reached the door to Liam's room, Robert stopped, seeming to hesitate. Finally, he turned the doorknob and entered. The atmosphere inside the room immediately became tense. Mr. Robert stopped in front of Liam's room door. For a moment he hesitated. He hadn't been there in months, maybe years. He didn't know what to say. He clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and finally turned the doorknob. Liam was in his wheelchair, looking at a book. He didn't look up when his father entered. "Hello, Liam," Robert said in a tense voice. The boy didn't respond. Robert walked slowly towards him, but stopped halfway. "You've grown." Liam closed the book with a thud. "I always grow," he murmured, without looking at him. Robert swallowed. "I know I've been absent." Liam let out a bitter laugh. "Absent? You left? Like always." The tone in his voice made Robert look away. Silence filled the room. Robert ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "I didn't know how to be here." "You didn't want to be here," Liam corrected him. Robert looked at him sadly. "I didn't want to, because I hated myself." For the first time, Liam looked up. Robert swallowed and continued. "Every time I saw this house, every time I thought of you, I remembered that night." The boy squeezed his hands on his lap. "You caused the accident." The air became heavy. Robert closed his eyes, as if guilt was consuming him. "Yes." Maria felt a chill. Robert took a deep breath and looked at his son with sincerity. "But what you don't know is that I never blamed you." Liam frowned. "Everyone looks at me as if I ruined everything." No, I ruined everything. The silence lingered until Liam whispered, "If Mom were here." Robert lowered his head. "If I could change things, I would." The boy took a deep breath. "Me too." Robert's eyes filled with sadness. "I can't erase the past, Liam, but I want to be your dad." The boy looked at him for several seconds. Finally, in a barely audible tone, he murmured, "I don't know if I can forgive you." Robert nodded. "You don't have to today. Just give me the chance to show you that I don't want to lose you again." Liam hesitated, and then, slowly, he nodded his head. Maria felt her heart lighten. Maybe, just maybe, something in that family had begun to heal. Chapter 5. Small steps towards healing. Hence the meeting between Mr. Robert and Liam. The atmosphere at Blackwood Manor had changed. Not drastically, but enough for Maria to notice. Mr. Robert didn't leave as he had on other occasions. He stayed at home, working from his study and sharing meals with Liam. However, the boy remained distant. He didn't speak to him more than necessary, and although he no longer avoided his presence, he also made no effort to get closer. Maria observed everything in silence. She knew that rebuilding a broken relationship was not easy, but she also knew that Liam needed his father, even if he wasn't ready to admit it. That afternoon, Maria took Liam to the garden for some fresh air. She sat on a bench while he slowly moved his wheelchair along the stone paths. After a few minutes of silence, Liam spoke. "Do you think people can change?" The question surprised her. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "But changing isn't easy." "Can my dad change?" Maria looked at the boy gently. "I think he wants to try." Liam pressed his lips together. "I don't know if I want him to." "Why?" The boy looked down. "Because if he does, then it means that before, things could have been different, and he didn't want them to be." Maria felt a knot in her throat. Perhaps he didn't know how to do it before. Liam fell silent, thoughtful. Later, while Liam was doing his homework in the library, Maria went to Mr. Robert's study. She knocked on the door and waited. "Come in." Maria entered and found Robert sitting behind his desk with a tired gaze. "How are things going with Liam?" she asked. Robert sighed. "He doesn't hate me, but he doesn't accept me either. It's a process. You can't expect everything to change overnight." Robert ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know how to talk to him. I don't know what to say to him." Maria approached and looked at him firmly. "You don't need to say anything perfect. He just needs to know you're there." Robert watched her in silence for a moment. "How do I do that?" "Start with small things. Keep him company. Ask about his day. Show him you care." Robert nodded slowly. "I'll try." Maria smiled faintly. "That's all he needs." That night, Robert approached Liam while the boy was reading in his room. "May I sit down?" Liam looked at him cautiously and nodded. Robert settled into the chair beside the bed. For a moment, there was only silence. "What are you reading?" Robert asked. Liam showed him the cover without saying anything. Robert nodded. "I read that book when I was a child. I didn't know you liked books." "I haven't read much lately, but I used to." Liam closed the book. "If you read, then why did you never want to read with me?" Robert felt the air catch in his throat. "It's not that I didn't want to. It's that I didn't know how to be with you." Liam looked at him seriously. "Why?" Robert took a deep breath. "Because every time I saw you, I saw what I did to you." The boy looked down. "It wasn't just you." Robert frowned. "What do you mean? I was also to blame. If I hadn't screamed..." Robert shook his head. "No. Don't say that again. That accident was my fault, Liam. Not yours." For the first time in years, Robert saw his son's face break. "But everyone looked at me as if..." "No. We were all broken." Liam felt a lump in his throat. "And now?" Robert took his hand carefully. "Now we will try to heal." Liam swallowed. "What if I can't?" Robert took a deep breath. Then we'll do it little by little." Liam looked at him for a few seconds, as if searching for something in his eyes. He wasn't ready to hug him. Not yet. But for the first time, he didn't pull away when his father put a hand on his shoulder. The next day dawned with a different atmosphere at Blackwood Manor. The air was still heavy, but something in the atmosphere had changed. The night before, Liam had allowed his father to hug him for the first time in years, and although he still wasn't ready to fully forgive, he no longer avoided him. Maria noticed the difference during breakfast. Mr. Robert sat at the table with Liam, and although the boy didn't talk much, he also didn't leave as he used to. "Did you sleep well?" Robert asked, breaking the silence. Liam nodded, taking a bite of his toast. "Would you like to go out to the garden for a bit after your homework?" his father insisted. The boy hesitated. "I don't know. We can see what you want to do when you finish," Robert said, without pressuring him. Maria noticed how Liam glanced at him for a moment before returning to his food. Small steps, but they were steps nonetheless. Later, Maria accompanied Liam to the library while he finished his homework. Although he tried to concentrate, he was noticeably distracted. "What are you thinking about?" she asked him. The boy slowly turned his chair and looked at her with a frown. "My dad has never talked to me like this." "Like what?" "Like he really wants to be here." Maria smiled faintly. "Maybe because he wants to now." Liam fell silent. "Do you think people can change?" "Yes, but it takes time and effort." Liam nodded, thoughtful. "I don't know if I'm ready to trust him." "You don't have to right away. Just keep listening to him." The boy sighed. "I guess I can try." Maria felt her chest lighten. She knew there was still a long way to go, but for the first time, Liam was willing to take a step forward. The afternoon sun streamed through the mansion's enormous windows, illuminating the marble floor with a golden hue. Liam had finished his homework, and although he hesitated at first, he finally agreed to go out to the garden with his father. Maria watched them from a distance as she walked along the stone paths. Mr. Robert walked slowly, adjusting his pace to his son's wheelchair. They didn't talk much, but there didn't seem to be any tension between them. After a while, Robert stopped near a fountain. "When I was your age, I used to play football here," he commented, looking at the lawn. Liam frowned. "I didn't know you liked football." "It was what I liked most." The boy looked down at his immobile legs. "I never played," Robert swallowed. "But that doesn't mean you can't try it another way." Liam looked at him with distrust. "How?" Robert took a ball from behind the fountain and dropped it to the ground. "We can try it together." The boy hesitated, but when his father gently pushed the ball with his foot, Liam turned his chair and hit it with one of the wheels. The ball rolled a few meters. Robert smiled. "Not bad for a first time." Liam looked at him with a different sparkle in his eyes. "Again?" Robert nodded. Maria, from a distance, felt a knot in her throat. For the first time, Liam was allowing himself to enjoy a moment with his father. And that, however small, changed everything. The cool afternoon weather enveloped Blackwood Manor as Maria walked through the hallways with a cup of hot tea in her hands. In recent days, she had noticed small changes in the relationship between Mr. Robert and Liam. They weren't obvious to everyone, but they were to her. Liam no longer tensed his shoulders when his father entered the room. He no longer looked away when Robert tried to talk to him. And most surprisingly of all, Liam no longer completely shut down. She found him in the library, sitting in his wheelchair by a table, idly looking at a book. Maria approached and sat across from him. "Is everything all right?" she asked softly. Liam nodded, but his expression wasn't entirely calm. "I'm thinking about something," he murmured. "About what?" The boy put the book down on the table and looked at her seriously. "My dad is still here." Maria smiled faintly. "Yes, I don't know how long he'll stay." Maria understood the fear behind those words. "Are you afraid he'll leave again?" Liam pressed his lips together and nodded. "He always left before, But this time is different, don't you think? The boy looked down. I don't know. Maybe. Maria took a deep breath. I believe he's trying to change, but I understand it's hard to trust that. Liam played with the corner of a book page. I want to believe him, but if he leaves again, I don't want it to hurt so much. Maria felt a knot in her throat. You can't avoid feeling what you feel, Liam, but I also believe that if you keep shutting him out, you'll never know if he's really trying to stay. The boy looked at her thoughtfully. Maybe I can give him a chance, he murmured. Maria smiled tenderly. I think that's a good start. That night, as Maria retired to her room, she saw something that confirmed everything was changing. Liam and Robert were in the living room, sitting next to each other. They weren't talking, but they were together, and sometimes that was enough. The morning was quiet at Blackwood Manor. Liam had spent more time with his father in recent days, although there was still some distance between them. Maria watched in silence, giving the boy space to decide for himself how far he wanted to go with Mr. Robert. After breakfast, Robert approached Liam cautiously. I'm going to review some documents in my office, but then I thought we could watch a movie together. Liam frowned, surprised. A movie? Yes. Something you like. You choose. The boy hesitated for a moment. Then he nodded shyly. Okay. Maria couldn't help but smile. It was the first time Liam had immediately accepted an invitation from his father. Later, in the mansion's living room, Liam and Robert were sitting on the large leather sofa. Maria watched them from a distance, making sure not to interrupt the moment. The movie began, and although Liam didn't say much at first, little by little he started making comments. That scene doesn't make sense. He pointed at the screen with a slight smile. Robert raised an eyebrow. Why not? Because no one would do that in real life. Robert chuckled softly. You're right. Sometimes movies exaggerate. Liam glanced at him. You used to watch movies with Mom, right? The question caught Robert by surprise. Yes, she liked old movies. Liam looked down for a moment, and then back at the screen. Maybe we could watch one of those sometime. Robert swallowed. I'd like that. Maria felt her chest fill with relief. Liam had not yet fully forgiven his father, but every day he allowed him to get a little closer. Small steps, but steps nonetheless. The sound of rain hitting the windows filled Blackwood Manor with a constant, soothing rhythm. Maria was in the kitchen, watching Liam and Mr. Robert share another moment together in the living room. There was no longer as much tension between them. Although they didn't talk much, the awkwardness had disappeared. What should we do today? Liam asked, turning his wheelchair towards his father. Robert put the newspaper down on the table and looked at him with interest. What would you like to do? The boy was silent for a moment. I don't know. Maybe we could play something. Robert raised an eyebrow. Play? Yes, I used to play chess with Mom. Robert's face softened. I used to play with her too. Liam shrugged. We could try. Robert smiled faintly. That sounds like a great idea. Minutes later, both were sitting in front of a chessboard in the library. Maria watched from a distance, making sure not to interrupt. Your turn, Liam said, moving a piece confidently. Robert studied the board for a few seconds before making his move. Your mother was very good at this. Liam smiled faintly. I know, she always beat me. Robert chuckled softly. Me too. Liam looked at him with curiosity. Did you play with her when you were young? Yes, and I almost never won. The boy became thoughtful. Maybe one day we could all three play. Robert swallowed. She would have liked that. Liam nodded, his eyes bright. Maria felt a knot in her throat. Liam and Robert were finding a new way to connect. And this time, it seemed that nothing would separate them. The morning sun filtered through Blackwood Manor's curtains, illuminating the spacious living room where Liam and Mr. Robert sat together. The tension that once existed between them had vanished. Now father and son shared moments without the shadow of the past darkening every conversation. Maria watched them from a distance, her hand resting on her advanced belly. In a few weeks, her baby would come into the world. She hugged herself, feeling the soft fabric of her coat. This truly was her home now. She had come here out of necessity, not by choice. And yet, at that moment, seeing Liam and Robert together, she felt that perhaps she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She had a home. She had a family. "Dad, your turn," Liam said, moving a chess piece. Robert smiled. "You know you're cornering me, right?" The boy shrugged playfully. "That depends on your next move." Maria smiled at the scene. "I think you have no escape, Robert." The man looked up and observed her tenderly. "I think I knew that a long time ago." Liam looked at both of them and smiled, feeling for the first time in a long time that everything was all right. Blackwood Manor was no longer a cold, silent place. Now it was a home full of life, of second chances, and of love. And this time, nothing and no one would separate them. Life always gives us second chances, and Liam and Mr. Robert's story shows us that love and family are the deepest things. If this story has touched you as much as it has us, don't forget to leave your like and share it with those who need a reminder that it's never too late to rebuild bonds. Your support helps us continue to bring you more stories full of emotion and hope. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our stories. And tell us in the comments, what country are you watching us from? We'd love to know how far our community reaches.